Good morning and warm welcome, and thank you for choosing to wake up with us this bright and beautiful. It's the 2nd of November. Of course, we do welcome you back from the conversation that Agi Uwase and Priva Elibas had. I know we started off the show on quite a sad note with, the story that I had in the sports updates where a Chinese tennis dad was charged with domestic violence for kicking and punching his little girl, which I still find quite absurd. And of course, the information also reaching us is the death of Davido's son, which is still quite very disheartening. A lot of things are happening, including the video that the Uganda police force did post in regard to border accidents. I want to urge all of you and re-echo, like Agi said, we need to be on alert and be very careful. Well, you're just in time for our views, and today we talk micromanagement. Well, I'll leave that right there. But first, joining me today are the ladies, the usual ladies I sit with. To my far right is Agi Uwase and then Priva Elibas. And today we are talking about micromanagement. Now, the aspect of micromanagement today, we're going to look at it in the workplace, because I've also had people who say that their partners can also be micromanagers in a way. Now, micromanagement is a dirty word in today's workplaces. And even while micromanagers, especially bosses or even heads of department, or even regardless of where you fall, could in one way actually have good intentions when they are micromanaging, but it could actually get out of hand. So first off is to understand what micromanagement truly is. Well, what is micromanagement? Micromanagement is where managers feel the need to control aspects of their employees' work and decision making to an extreme degree that is more than necessary or healthy for the usual working relationship. Now, it is one thing to have a boss, but it is one thing to have a boss who is constantly hovering over your shoulder, constantly viewing your WhatsApp status, constantly on the run, wanting to know every single detail of your life, even when you're outside work. In short, your boss is all up in your business. So ladies, first of all, it's very important to understand, I'm very sure you have worked for different organizations over time. I will not ask if you have been micromanaged before, no. But where do you think it stems from? Bosses, owners of organization, heads of department, regardless the capacity that you're in, where do you think the aspect of micromanaging comes from?
Well, I think people micromanage subconsciously. Like I already said, they always maybe have the best interests for the company, and everything is just that the delivery is always poor. I once worked with a certain law firm, and let me tell you, the managing partner was such a micromanager that I couldn't breathe. Like most of us couldn't breathe. Like going to work and you're almost like on tenterhooks, and even when you're given the work, he's hovering behind your computer, he's seeing how you're going to do the work, how you're going to execute it. So for me, that created a hostile environment for me at work, and it's not something that I like. No one wants to go to a hostile environment. I want you to understand that if by the time you've hired me, yes, and you've given me a job or a task to accomplish, I hope you trust me enough to get it done. And if you think you don't trust my efforts alone, maybe put me together with Shivan and add Wasa in the mix, but do not micromanage your employees, because then what that makes is that it creates a hostile environment. Even if you have the good intentions as a manager, you want to get the immediate results and the immediate response, you're putting people under unnecessary pressure and stress. So yes, people do it because they want immediate results.
And that is absolutely true. To add on what Priva is saying, I think it's an issue of trust. There's people who just have trust issues, and this stems from their personal lives, and what happens is they proceed and take it to their workplaces. They feel like no one can do the job as good as they want, so they want to be every other time looking at you, how are you doing, to follow up behind you. Did you do this? Did you do that? And I also think the other thing is the issue of perfection. There's people who want things absolutely perfect, exactly how they want it. And also this again is in line with trust, because they want it perfect. They feel like you may not do it as perfectly as they want you to do it. So they are calling in, did you do this? Did you do that? Have you done exactly what I want you, to do? And I think the other thing is because, when it comes to managers, they feel that they are more experienced. Well, it's absolutely true, because that's why they are a manager. Maybe because they have more experience than the other. Sometimes, yes, than the other people. And with the experience, so they try to impose this idea of micromanaging their employees and their workers, because they feel, I have seen it all, I know it all. You should know that I actually know it, which is a good thing. But then again, in the long run, it may not be a good thing.
What you've said does make sense, but even while that might be a good thing, so why don't you open your company, be the boss,
do
be
everything,
the one who opens the gate, make the tea, be the financer? Because in short, if you know it all, so why have you opened up an organization and inviting people to work for you? I keep telling the people I meet along my journey of life, especially those in positions of leadership, that always remember that there is a reason as to why you're a leader. A leader does not mean that you have to impose, because then you're not being a leader. The mere fact that you have to impose and remind people that, hey, guess what? By the way, I'm the boss, then you know that there is actually a problem. But what causes bosses to micromanage is micromanaging bosses often have good intentions. They want, what they want is what is best for their team, but their methods, however, do not cultivate trust. Now, micromanagers may believe that they can do work more effectively than anyone else, and no one else will work as hard as they do. Now, this mostly comes especially if not only is he like a CEO or maybe an MD, but he's also the owner of the company. So he believes that no one other than himself is better off carrying on that organization. You understand what I mean?
Forward,
like no one else will treat his baby or her baby the way he or she would treat them. So that's the micromanaging and wanting to make sure that the employees are doing what they're supposed to do. But let's get into the signs. What are some of the signs? What are some of the telltale signs of a micromanaging boss? I'll start with you, Aggie.
I will say one of them is, they don't delegate at all.
Oh, yeah.
They want to do it all. They know they can do it all. Usually in a company, just like you mentioned earlier, there's a reason why there's a manager, there's a reason why there's an accounts officer, there's a reason why there's a human resource manager. And also there's a reason why under departments, they usually, I almost call them sub-managers, but no. So yes, you need to delegate some of this work sometimes. And that takes trust, and confidence in your team and in your employees and in your workers to know that they will do the work. But if you don't have that, then you will find yourself in a position where, you're micro managing them. So yes, people who don't delegate, those right there are micromanagers. And then you have these phone calls coming through, calling your employees, right? It's even not time for work. It's, past, it could even be past 10 when people are sleeping, but then you're calling to find out, did you do this? Did you do that? Or maybe they sent you the email, but then you're still calling, how about this? How about that? They're literally calling in every other minute to know how did you do the job? How are you doing it? Imagine they give you an assignment at 8 a.m. in the morning, barely 30 minutes after they are calling to know how far with the job. How about you actually give people time to be able to do it? Yes. So yes, the issue of following up every other minute, and then they're behind, just like you mentioned. I think that happens all the time. When you're doing your job, you're on your laptop or your computer, and then the man or the woman is standing right behind you, seeing what you are doing. You're jeopardizing my work. I will put it that way. Yes.
Let me finish my work, then you can
and then you can do whatever you have to do after that.
Priva, the floor is yours now.
Yes, and I think for me one of the reasons is that, one of the signs of a micromanager is that I realized that my manager would always focus on, what you're doing wrong than what you're doing right. And what happens is that, even when what you've done deserves like a public recognition and, public praise and, saying, oh, Wasi has done something amazing. Oh, Shivan has, achieved this, she's the employee of the month, or she has helped us, bring in this much money in the company. They never give you that public praise. Instead, they are willing to say, Shivan, you messed up that. You did this wrong, and you did that wrong. And then just like Aggie also talked about, they never delegate anything. They want to do it all by themselves. They're always asking for that, they always have that periodic intervention. How far have you reached? How is it going? How is it happening? So annoying.
Oh yeah, I
concur. To add on what the ladies said, of course, you talked about her constantly wanting to be updated. You also talked about the fact that they become overly involved in the employees' work, then constantly calling you. Now, the other that I know offhand is that they constantly want to be copied in an email. Now, I worked in a certain organization, and my departmental head always wanted to be copied in the email. Like even when the email had nothing to do with her, she always wanted to be copied. Like she always wanted to be in the know. Now there is a difference between you as a boss, or you as you know, as a departmental head, being in the know of what's happening to your subordinates. But there are some conversations that are just not for you, and we need to skip protocol, you get. So this person always wanted to be copied in every email. So that is another sign.
But also micromanagers act like, you know, their employees should know everything that they have been put, you know, before them. Sometimes as a leader, you're supposed to, you know, guide some of your employees on how they can accomplish certain tasks, give them morale. But instead, for them, if they give you something, whether you know it or don't know it, a micromanager expects you to get it done, or they'll be on your case to make sure you get it done. So what are you achieving at the end of the day?
Well, micromanagers complain that they are constantly never satisfied. Micromanagers leave no room for creativity and initiatives, and as well discourage independent decision making. Now, one of the tell signs of a micromanager is that as long as he or she has not said yes, approved, then nothing can be done. You know, there are some situations that happen in organizations. For example, let's say there was one of the employees who was coming to work, got a border accident, and let's say you're the head of finance, and we're saying send this employee money so that they're able to get first aid, but he or she knows that she cannot go ahead and do this unless they have contacted the superior above, which is quite absurd. Then you know that those are the telltale signs of a micromanager. And well, finally, micromanagers do not pass their knowledge and skills. They do not pass on their knowledge.
Selfish.
They are very selfish. Okay, so ladies, as we wind up the conversation, now that we have looked at what a micromanager is, what micromanagement is, what are the signs of micromanagement, now the viewer, I'm thinking, would like to know, but how can you tell your boss to give you some space without being rude? You know, telling him okay, it may not be point blank, because again, he or she is your boss. So how would you tell your boss or your superior that, you know what, you are actually micromanaging me and it is affecting me?
Wow, I think that would be an honest conversation that you would have in a very chill setting.
Yes, keyword is sipping
some coffee. Yes, because you know this is not a conversation you attack out of nowhere. You come in the morning and you're like, "Excuse me, sir, I'd like to have a conversation with you. I think you're micromanager." That will blow up in your face. That will blow up in your face. But you know, when he gives you a task to cover, and then you know he's already, you know, telling you what to do, maybe you can engage him and tell him or her that, you know what, I want you to trust me with this task that you've given me, and I want you to see what I can produce for you at the end of the day. You know, let us see what happens when I have finished the task at the end of the day. Then you can chime in there, and I promise you won't be, you know, let down by my efforts and the work that I've put into this. Honestly, if he does not pick up on that is actually, you know, micromanaging you and making you uncomfortable, then I don't know what else can work. But I think speaking about it is actually a good thing. But the way you can talk about it, make sure the environment is calm enough and no one is in their feelings, because that can blow up in your face.
Yes. And maybe you should also study and see how good they are that day. Maybe you should start with a very, you know, soft conversation of how are you, even if you haven't been, you know, are you okay? Have you had some breakfast? You know, try to put them in that mood so that it doesn't appear as serious. But then I feel like sometimes you just have to be really open with them. Tell them how it's actually affecting you. Let's say it's affecting your creativity, because I mean, it does hamper creativity a lot. Micromanagement does that. Tell them that you are not able to think out of the box if you are, you know, on my case every other time. Tell them, maybe, because some people do suffer, you know, from burnout at the end of the day. If you're with a manager who is always on your case every minute, every second, you're going home, you are grumbling about how bad your day has been, all that burnout. So me, I think sometimes you just have to be honest, but just like Priva said, the method of how you communicate is what's very important, so that you're not misunderstood, so that tomorrow you can actually have a cordial relationship with your manager without having to have, you know, issues and not having to see each other face to face.
But also, if an employee approaches you as a boss, and you know, because also sometimes we need to call a spade a spade. We do not need to sugarcoat these things, because again, I know this is a conversation for another day. There's a difference between respect and fear. If I came to you as my boss and I told you, good morning, sir, good morning, madam, I appreciate the work that you're doing and I appreciate that you're a perfectionist, like in good terms. However, your constant hovering over my shoulder is affecting me in one or the other. I think that a leader should be mature enough to take in that information and not put it and not take it out of context, because then if you do that, then that is already a sign of a bad leader. Like,
because you're questioning now,
exactly,
you're questioning them.
exactly.
Yeah.
And again, under the aspects of how to deal, and of course I'm going to get into that, of how a micromanager can actually deal with micromanagement, is that they should accept feedback from their employees. Because if you do not accept feedback, then people will never come running to you.
Yeah.
Well, tips on how to not be a micromanager. One, let go being a perfectionist. Now, I'm one of those people who is a perfectionist. So let me tell you the trick that I do. If you know that the person that you have delegated to do that particular thing, you have second doubts about them, just do it yourself so that you don't stress other people.
It's
Like,
so
I like to do
simple.
that, especially when it comes to cooking. Like, if I know you're not going to do it the right way,
Yeah.
I rather do it myself, so that in turn we still remain cordial. I do that a lot with my mom, so I would rather cook it myself and not have issues. Well, the next is learn to practice delegation.
Oh, yeah.
Delegate. There is a reason why there are different, levels in an organization. The next is learn to embrace failure. Rome was not built in one day. The walls of Jericho did not fall down in one day. They fell down after the Israelites walked around it 7 times. So again, still, learn to accept and embrace failure. The fourth is focus on your role and responsibilities, and then seek feedback and learn to talk to your team. So as I wrap up this conversation, I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from a book that I've been reading called Leaders Eat Last. Now, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, or do more, and even become more, then you are a leader. So if you're watching us this morning, sit down and ask yourself, when my employees look at me, do they want to be like me? Do they inspire to be like me? If the answer is yes, then you are an absolutely good leader. But if the answer is no, there is still room to recover yourself. Well, you can easily judge the character of a man by how he treats those who can do nothing to him. The true price of leadership is the willingness to place the needs of others before your own. And well, that wraps up the conversation that we had for you this morning on Our Views. This is Sunrise at Sea. Good morning.
Well, we've had amazing and great conversations this morning on Sunrise at Sea. We had a really lengthy discussion earlier with Priva Elibas in regard to the plenary UG session that transpired yesterday. I think we talked about literally everything and gave you all, an in-depth analysis of that, and also called upon you that today, there will be a session, a plenary session, so you should be able to follow that up. But I'm just going to say something that Priva, said off air that you couldn't hear. You say that members of parliament who are decrying the fact that, they're taking on the role of sole providers for their constituents, that she thinks it's about time you resign if you feel like it's a burden, because that statement was made by the leader of opposition in parliament, Honorable Matthias Impuga. He said it's actually becoming a burden to be a member of parliament. So word of advice from Priva Elibas, yes, you should resign, or if you feel that's being a burden. But anyway, we wind up the show with a conversation on micromanagement, and yes, word of advice for all managers out there. You cannot do it all. There's a reason why we are over so many billions of people on this planet, because everyone has a role to play. Everyone brings something to the table, so you cannot be able to do it, all. No man is an island. Oh yeah, we had amazing and great conversations. Thank you so much for being a part of us. If you have missed out on today's episode, you can be sure to catch up on our YouTube channel at SEETV Uganda. Catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. From the ladies and I, it's a goodbye.